Ladies and gentlemen, the Monkey Man, the Monkey Game is out and it is tearing up the charts right now. Holy! Over the weekend, we got a full heavy dose of the actual reviews. When I last talked about this game, we had that leaked IGN review, maybe coming out of China. Maybe it was leaked. Who knows? I think it was a 5 out of 10 or something like that. It didn't end up being true. In fact, IGN China ended up reviewing it a perfect 10 on 10. And it's kind of interesting, right? Because there's been a whole host of reviews that are out there, and obviously some based on those reviews has led to a massive uptick in sales. The top 100 best-selling games right now by revenue, Black Myth, Wukong, and the rest of it's not even close, okay? People are probably buying Steam Decks so that they can go ahead and play Black Myth on the go. When it comes to the reviews, look at all the perfect 10s. Look at all the perfect 10s, the high 90s, the mid 90s, and then you start to get a little bit further down there. Then you get to IGN proper, which, you had IGN China at 10 on 10, and then you had IGN America with 8 on 10, which is still fantastic, right? But why did they mark it down a couple of points compared to their Eastern counterparts? Well, there's been something very interesting, okay? You have your Chinese-based outlets coming out reviewing a Chinese-developed game, and you're going to have a lot of nationalistic pride and a lot of propaganda that's out there because, okay, for as based as the developers have been, at the end of the day, this is still a Chinese property. They still have their political affiliations. You've got to respect. That's going to cloud a whole bunch of this. But at the same time, if this is extolling widely held and widely popular Chinese values, that's not terribly bad, okay? Especially in conjunction with some other stuff that they're talking about in this verified email, this list of do's and don'ts when it comes to people getting codes and early review copies. Here's the things that you're allowed to do with the game, and well, this is causing a bit of a stir and is probably leading to some interesting review insights. But your do's and don'ts, your do's, well, enjoy the game. Well, I would hope so, right? But your don'ts, don't insult other influencers or players. Well, that's totally fine. Do not use any offensive language or humor. Okay, that's fair, when you're reviewing something in the capacity where you're being tacitly sponsored in order to provide your coverage. Yeah, okay, you can go ahead and be above board with your language. And then this is where it gets kind of interesting. Do not include politics, violence, nudity, feminist propaganda, fetishization, and other content that instigates negative discourse. That's where a lot of reviewers are taking umbrage with your guidelines because they can't write a simple review looking directly at you, Kotaku, without infusing personal politics. And then, don't use trigger words such as quarantine, isolation, or the coof. I beg your pardon? Why would you be reviewing that in any form or fashion? Why would that come up in your review? Like, outside of saying maybe this was developed during the pandemic, during a harsh quarantine, and even still it came out in this state, which, when it comes to reviews specifically, we'll look at one that's going exceptionally viral. Like, when it comes to people actually discussing the game, some graphical glitches, mostly because UE5, not exactly the best engine for doing this type of stuff. It's like Tekken 8 and no other games have found a good way to maximize the potential of UE5. That, and there's also some interesting PC specs that are out there that just kind of shows you that it's been incredibly well optimized for the PS5, but on the PC, not entirely sure. Maybe that's why that benchmarker is going to be so important, and that's why so many people checked it out, over 85,000 people. But and then the final bullet point, which really just drives home that, this is China that's helping to develop this game, right? Do not discuss content related to China's games, industry policies, opinions, news, etc. You are here to review a game. Don't discuss politics. I'm actually fine with that in totality because, when you go to get a game review, you don't really need to be inundated with modern deisms. I get it. I respect it. The fact that this stuff needs to be pointed out kind of also speaks to the sad state of the industry. But I'm fine with that. I am more than fine with that being the standard going forward, give or take, a couple of those bottom bullet points. But also, if this applies to the outlets that are screeching about it, the outlets like Screen Rant, which, like we seen earlier, mark down Black Myth Wukong because, we got our bullet points. That's right here. and we'll go through it. In the role of the Destined One, Black Myth Wukong takes players on a cinematic story-driven experience in an action RPG based on the adaptation of Journey to the West, using dynamic combat and skills to defeat formidable enemies, cunning spirits, and the mythic Aogwai. Players traverse through breathtaking landscapes, from lush forests to towering mountains and mystic temples. Why don't we get to like the actual game? Said all this flowery language. While there are elements of great design and by developer game science, engaging narrative, and varied boss fights, especially Black Myth Wukong also presents issues that can severely impact the gameplay experience and reliability of the game. Are you talking about technical aspects? Well, I'll let you go here for a second. Taking into account the controversies with the current modern gaming audience. Oh, I see where you're going. And expectations of Souls-like games, whether Black Myth Wukong lives up to its hype, is questionable at best. Getting a 3 out of 5 from Screen Rant. But the pros, okay, combat is fluid and fun. Cinematography can be breathtaking at times. Great diversity in items and mechanics. Okay, cool. That sounds like a great game, to be completely honest. Fun to play, there's lots to do, and it looks really good. Great. What's your cons? Game's performance is unpolished. Okay, you've heard that. That's a legitimate complaint. Lacking in inclusivity and diversity. Oh god, this became the meme review overnight, huh? Gameplay becomes repetitive over time. Yeah, see, 2 out of your 3 complaints, you can substantiate that with your review, but if you're going to point out a lack of diversity and inclusivity after we've seen game science put the likes of Sweet Baby Inc. on blast on their $7 million extortion attempt, we know what side you're on and who wrote this pile of crap. Oh, right. Crumbs has a skinny on this stuff, so shout out. Everyone is talking about Screen Rant's slanted review of Wukong. Here's what happened to the infamous Screen Rant review of Black Myth Wukong after they gave it a 6/10 for not being diverse enough. The review dedicated an entire section to Wukong's supposed lack of inclusion and representation, repeating the infamous IGN hit piece from the developer's game science. The problem is that the IGN article was full of mistranslations, including misunderstanding of cultural idioms. The translator is not native, and interestingly enough, never paid and was stiffed by IGN, including the insertion of phrases that never existed. And the Western gaming press continued to repeat the flawed IGN article, bringing it up every single time they interviewed the developers or discussed the game, despite the accusations having no merit. The reporter from Screen Rant repeated those allegations as fact and had an obvious axe to grind. And you know what those allegations were, right? Okay, and let's take a look at them, okay? They're all quoting the English translation, a bunch of gamers who care about the accurate translations. Foreign source games, I think we can do better. And the world leader fluent in Mandarin can give a speech in Chinese and inadvertently say he wanted China and Australia to have multiple mutual orgasms. I think we can give benefit to the doubt here on the translation. Well, I think this report is a joke. Loads of mistranslations. How could they mistranslate it? You will be used to it. You can, yank off to it. Clearly an intentional mistranslation to fit the sexism narrative. Well, yeah, of course. All in all, and when we went over the article beforehand in a previous video, which I have on the channels here, none of it has anything to do with the actual game itself. It's an attack on the developer that, oh, he's got the sexism in him. It's like, oh yeah, fantastic. I don't care. But yeah, the Screen Rant reviewer, whose name is nowhere to be found on this article, I find that to be very interesting, where you would be so proud as to publish your review, but not exactly proud enough to put your name at the bottom or the top or anything like that. We're still going. Ain't that a bitch right here? You got an entire section. You have an entire section dedicated to DEI, but you don't have it to the name of the reviewer. But here we have the Screen Rant reviewer, Samar Abedin, is a self-proclaimed advocate about creativity and cultural representation. These people, everything must have representation in order to push their agenda. What do you mean those people? Women, including a game about a monkey, a pig, and a purely fictional and non-human characters. What's worse, everything that does not have their preferred representation must be torn down and derided as hateful. It's pure evil, revisionist, and dogmatic as hell. She went out of her way to libel game science, repeating the debunked allegations and slamming the review scores as a result to 6 out of 10 with other outlets, 8s, 9s, 10s, and I'm sure within the next couple of days, your favorite game reviewer, whoever that is, will probably have their take on it. And, you can go ahead and judge from there, because there's nothing from the likes of Samar Abedin, the senior gaming guides writer for Screen Rant. There's no opinions of hers that I would take at face value or seek them out in any form or fashion, unless, of course, I'm looking for a good laugh. After attacking and slandering the Wukong and its developers, people started digging. Turns out that Samar works, or had worked, for a PR consultancy group called Splendid Communications, you don't say. Splendid, of course, is a PR firm that pushes for the usual DEI crap. Another consultancy group, poisoning games and every product they touch. So even before she was called out, she deleted her LinkedIn and ran. I believe game studios have the right to know they're false accusers, and that if you're a games journalist attacking developers, that you are putting yourself into the spotlight and should at least attempt to stand by your work. Of course, that never happened. Instead, they duck and cover. Yeah, as you can see, ended up being changed to Screen Rant team, but let's just finish this off. After launching her attack against Wukong and its developers, Game Science, Samar deleted her online presence, and Screen Rant ran cover for her, because of course they would. Neither she nor Screen Rant will stand by what they said. Instead, they alerted the byline in real time and pretend the article was written by a team. Of course, they cited the usual dreck that it was for the safety reasons, but these are not innocent bystanders. These journalists self-insert deliberately tank reviews for politics and baselessly and falsely accuse game developers of horrific things on a massive press platform. By doing so, you must stand ready to receive legitimate criticism, because you are the attacker and the accuser, and Game Science has a right to know and face their accusers. Everything else is cowardly, underhanded, and deceitful. That it couldn't have said it better myself. Hence why we use some actual games journalism to take a look at what we can expect from a Black Myth Wukong. And to be completely honest, man, I'm still very interested in this game. Seeing how it's performing on some higher end rigs has me a little bit in a pause for cause. Because as much as I look at that gameplay, and as somebody who doesn't like Souls games at all whatsoever, I could see this as one that you know what, I might be interested. I might be interested enough to pick it up, probably on a sale. Like if it's on sale on and around Christmas, depending on how the rest of the year goes, yeah, maybe I'll check it out then. Not exactly champing at the bit right now. I can see that there are plenty of other people who are out there doing that, and yeah, maybe the game will get better optimized by the time that I want to pick it up. Fantastic stuff. I still have a tremendous back catalog and still want to play through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth again, because that game's great. Oh my god, it's great. But at least up there at the top for the year, it looks like that game has some competition for Game of the Year, and I hope it's as good as people say that it is. I hope that if you are playing it right now, you're having a whale of a good time, because it looks like it's one of these games that's actually free of the propaganda, or at least the traditional propaganda that has ruined the Western gaming industry, that the Eastern game industry has saved itself from, and hopefully this has become the new standard of game development, one that's not overtly political, but also one that's not exactly dedicated to the CCP. Can we go ahead and keep that stuff out of it? That'd be great. That'd be great. That's just as toxic, actually, probably even worse than feminism. But if I'm to go ahead and, be forced to down the commie pill or the feminist pill, what's that old saying? Better dead than red? Nah, in this case, take the old JFK approach. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.